And boom, we're live and on the air. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the channel, Yankees Outdoor Adventures. I am Carlos McQuinot. You know me as Yankee. And, of course, my guest on these topics here is Green Feathers. Nick, thank you for being here, brother. Appreciate it.
Wanishi, for having me back again. Thank you, brother.
Well, thank you, man. It's always an honor to have you here. And we have some really great conversations. In fact, let me throw a big thank you to you guys watching, everyone watching the video for the turnout that we had on our last discussion video. The topic is hitting really well. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And if you have, thank you for checking it out. We do appreciate the support. Another quick announcement here. Today we're going to talk about the winter solstice, first of all. Let me just get that out there. The winter solstice, but we're going to talk about it focused on here in America. We're not focusing so much on other rituals from around the world. But what did the Native Americans here do? And we're even going to take you back not only to my ancestors of the Native Americans, but we're going to take you back to what's possibly their ancestors of their ancient time. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we know of winter celebrations here in America. Also want to throw out really quick, and we're going to get right into the topic. Guys, in my description, please open it up. There's a little write-up about what I'm talking about here today, but directly under it, before it gets into all the big rigmarole of what YouTube likes us to put in a description, before all that, you're going to see a link and a little shout out to a channel, just as a Christmas present from me to you. Happy trails. I want to try to get you that last 20 subs you need to reach your 3K goal. 3,000. It's a big number on YouTube, guys. So if you can, and you're here and go check out a channel. And it's a very good channel. It's about outdoors and healthy living, and it's very worth checking out. So, all right. Nick, I usually don't do those shout outs in these videos. It's almost Christmas, and I wanted to do that. I hope she can get those last 20, man. I really do. And a TikTok rabbit hole, welcome to the stream. And he's saying a big hello to you there, Green Feathers.
Hey, how you doing? Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
All right. Now, I think it's like right off the get-go to start out, there's a lot of Native American tribes, and my expertise is the East Coast Indians, but there's a lot of the tribes on the East Coast that really had no type of celebration at all for the winter solstice. The celebration would have been prior to the winter that we're in right now. It would have been the fall harvest would have been a big celebration. Now, that's not to say that they didn't recognize the shortest day of the year, because the Native Americans were very in touch with nature in general. They did watch the sky as well as the ground and everything that was on the ground. So as far as being aware of it, yes, they definitely were, but they didn't hold a big celebration. Now, I know some tribes here on the East Coast seen this point, made mark of this point of being the shortest day of the year. However, just referred to it as a time that you are now in the time to possibly tell stories, dance, pray, bond with family, and more or less, hunker down for the winter. And we talked about that a little bit in our other video also. Okay, so the sun was important. In fact, I mean, that's the other aspect, because to say, even though they didn't celebrate the solstice, they still understood the movement of the sun, and the sun was very important. Many of the tribes would always align their doors to their homes with the east sun. So again, that would be on the alignment of due east. So that would require understanding how the sun moves in the sky. So it is something that they paid attention to, just not so much celebrated like we would hear of certain overseas cultures. You got anything you want to add on any of that there, Green Feathers, so far?
The sun was, as well as the other stars, were very visible in the wintertime. So now would have been the time that while you're sitting with your family, you might be looking up at certain stars and coming up with stories or recalling stories from your ancestors. And in some circumstances, they would construct earthworks in different shapes, maybe shaped like a certain animal, or mounds themselves arranged in a geographic pattern and a geometric shape which aligns with those stars. So the sun, always very prominent in ancient cultures, but in the wintertime, being that it's the source of heat, it's the source of your skin receiving that sustenance, that vitamin, all the vitamins that it gives. They would have associated it with life itself, and then with the process of that time of year, and that's reflected in symbols like the solar wheel, which is also replicated in the shape of the Milky Way galaxy. So astronomical phenomenon that are going on tonight, they would have seen that all the time and known when things were happening, regardless of if they had that written down. It would have been passed down and transmitted when things were occurring.
Right.
When.
Well, and let's point it out. You mentioned like with things that are happening tonight, and tonight there's a conjuncture of two planets, of Saturn and Jupiter, and it actually, if you're fortunate enough to have clear sky, you'll see it tonight just after sunset. And it was brought to my attention about the. So here's another point too when it comes to the stars. Even today, yet today, the stars were still watched by certain native cultures, even though they may not have celebrated on the same type of days that we designate first day or whatnot. The conjuncture of these two planets is something that has been passed down in stories for tribe out west for generations. And there's a celebration today, which happens to be the first day of winter, but it's more of a celebration for that conjuncture. So, there's times they would pay homage to certain things, but not always was it just because of it being the day of winter. But there were tribes that did. We don't always know exactly what they celebrated. There's two reasons why. One of the main reasons why we don't understand exactly what was celebrated all over this country is because of the influence of Christianity. Christianity had a goal of converting and changing all the lifestyle that was here. So in that, anytime there was a ceremony or a ritual, Christianity would step in like they did everywhere else in the world and move that ceremony to either Christmas Day or to one of the saints' days, taking it away from whatever the traditional way was. And in this, some of this stuff was lost. It was literally lost. Some of the celebrations that were taking place because of that transfer. There are stones along the East Coast yet today that have been discovered that are notched and marked to not only spot the shortest day of the year, but also the longest day of the year, as well as spring, fall, equinox. Now, to have such a boulder notched in such a way, and it still works yet today, definitely indicates there was some type of cultural happening that took place during these times. And but we don't have a lot of information on it. That's probably one of the biggest saddest parts is we don't have a lot of information on it, considering that it wasn't really that long ago, because we're going to go in a little bit deeper than Native Americans, which is more culture that we are really in question of. But let me shout out the room here real quick, man. Boom, look at her, Gemma, just become a member. Love you, hon. You are awesome. Gemma's Journey Grace is in the house. Uncle Al is in the house. We have What is that? Wrestle whatever. Welcome, my friend. TikTok, welcome, brother. Go Fish Office, welcome, my friend. James, glad to have you here, brother. Nettie, welcome. Um, Marquesco, yeah, I think I said that all wrong. That's all right. Welcome anyway. O3, welcome to you as well. Did I miss anybody in there? If I missed you, let me know in the chat right now. Let me know that I missed you. And Gemma, you are awesome. Thank you for being here, hon. Dun dun dun. Okay, so although the Native Americans, the with a lot of the, like I said, the celebrations were being pushed. What I personally know from my own experience and with my own tribe is that the first day of winter itself wasn't seen as a special day to celebrate outside of every day because it was winter time. And like I said, in the winter time, this was your time for not only religious and dance and stories, but games, man. The natives, they loved winter games. They played pretty hardcore. We talked about this a little bit in our last video. Also, a lot of times they wouldn't wear clothes for their ice and snow games. They just grease up and go, which I mean, just must have been amazing. We tried to get Green Feathers to grease up and get naked out there in the snow, but he wouldn't do it. You missed a good.
As soon as I get 2.5K subs, we'll see what happens. So
grease up.
Yeah. So in regards to games, though, the Iroquois had a game in the wintertime called Snow Snake, which they actually considered community medicine as well. So to participate in the games and obviously getting your energy going, your adrenaline, and having fun with everyone would likely have been what that medicine that they were conveying was. But also the game itself, the ritual, was part of the process, and that was a wintertime game. In this culture here in the Lenape lands here, we had a game called Chunky, and oftentimes on sites I'll find chunky stones and entire game ball sets, and essentially what those consist of is a stone disc, a little bigger than a donut, and I have some of them, but I'll save that for another video. And game balls a little bigger than marbles, and it involved throwing and everything along those lines. So at some point in time, I'll pull those out for you. But there were a lot of games here, just like how we have snowball fights. I'm sure there were games that we don't even know about that existed throughout all seasons.
Definitely a lot of different games that we play yet today too. I mean, so but it wasn't. Just say I can't say that there wasn't a religious ceremony that didn't that no religious ceremony took place on the first day of winter, because you're talking about a very spiritual culture. So there was in a sense religious ceremony in almost every aspect of life. So there would have been, but
even again, the day-to-day process, going back to the culture you mentioned earlier, which could have preceded and archaeologically definitely did, the tribe that you and I know immediately to be our ancestors here, which were the mound builders. One day-to-day ritual which we know became ritualized and passed on to our ancestors here, the Lenape, was red ochre production, and that tied back to sun worship. And in the wintertime, I'm sure there were rituals like, for example, at peak points of the sun being aligned in that place and time where you lived, it would have been more meaningful, perhaps. And there is a record, an archaeological record, which is very, very dense across this whole tri-state area. All the places where our ancestors lived, it's not just 1,000 years, it's many tens of thousands of years. So it's a very deep transmission of culture.
A lot of people don't realize that when we talk about the mound culture that was here in America, Now, this does, like you said, it precedes the Native Americans. But a lot of people don't realize there was a large amount of mounds here in America. They were it wasn't a thing like today. You got to find one place that's a state park on your map, and that's like the only mound you know of in your state type of deal. The truth of the matter is there were mounds like
everywhere. It would be a part of your life. You'd walk out and it would be a feature in your community, and it would be just like how you have a graveyard and you don't go and hang out there all the time. It's not that would be a part of their day to day. It's just that it was something which you would see and know of and encounter. So there was a constant reminder of continuity of
right.
all of that.
When this country began to build as the country you know it now, the industry took over. So there was clear cut of all these trees. In the clear cut of the trees, then there was plowing of all the grounds. Okay, and they did all this to farm for industry. It's what it was all about, the wood and the farm. In doing that, that would be like the very first destruction of all these mounds that were and essentially on the East Coast. They were just guys, they were plowed flat. A farmer doesn't want to plow up over a hill. He's going to go ahead and break that crap up and spread it out. And, but we do know when we talk about the mound builders, we do know that they did make note of the sun way more than the Native Americans did. They would bury in accordance to it. They would build in accordance to it. They would. They were the ones that have the definite American Stonehenge type things. We find archaeological finds of these what used to be, when it was constructed, essentially the same thing as Stonehenge. You could stand in the middle of it and pretty much tell any time of the year by where the sun's rising and setting in the poles that are around you. So that definitely is one of the. I think that we covered everything we wanted to go over, though, in our what I'll refer to as more modern native time. Right? Did we? Stories. Oh, okay. Yeah, I threw a story in there. That's why. That's why I got a big gap here. Never mind. I understand. I lost myself on my note screen, Feather.
It's okay. It happens.
You know what? I called you Green Eagle like 3 times in the other video also. Did you notice that?
You know what? I did, and I'm just going to say go Eagles. So
man, I didn't even notice it till I rewatched it, and I was like, what did I just say? It was like I talked to this guy.
It was like a compliment because we're Philly Eagles fans here, so.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh no, I'm not a football fan at all. So I just always say, "Oh no," when somebody tells me.
I know. I don't keep up with it religiously. It's just that if I was to shout out Philly, definitely, and I'm from Brooklyn, so that's kind of sacrilegious for me to say, but.
Right on. Well, again, winter solstice here, as far as Native Americans went, on the ones that I am knowledgeable about. It wasn't necessarily celebrated, other than you probably would have definitely heard some good stories that night, because it would have been most likely a long, cold night, and hunkering down around the fire inside the wigwam with a bunch of people all kind of sitting close and covered up together. What a great time to tell a story and stay warm.
I'd have to agree, and I'd like to invite everybody watching right now to join us this weekend or next week, because I know that we'll have a snowstorm rolling in, and we'll have a definitive date ready for you in a few days. But we're going to do a really cool live stream during the snowstorm. I'll have a fire going, and we'll have a good conversation. Yankee will do some storytelling.
That sounds awesome, man. That's what we'll definitely do. So, guys, go set your reminder for it when it pops up. All you gotta do is go to the channel and look down at it. They got an up and coming section. If there's something scheduled, you'll see it there. So, um, man, the mounds. They're so. I'm not gonna say in this video that even though I did just say that I know there wasn't big celebrations on the winter solstice, I'm not gonna say there wasn't big celebrations on the winter solstice ever in America, because the mound builders have definitely paid a lot of attention to the sun, and I would definitely imagine that that would be a very prominent day because it was around the rest of the world.
And so is the mound building phenomenon as well. And some
Yeah,
would
I think
argue that the pyramids, the mound building, agriculture, red ochre production, biface tools were spread by Cro-Magnon in very ancient times, like over 100,000 years ago, which is where that cultural diffusion started. And I would say that that's one aspect of it, but that the really, really modern to ancient time here was dictated not only by early humans, but also by, like you mentioned earlier, other cultures coming in and unfortunately deleting many aspects of what was here for so long. So,
see,
like,
that's not a dig against any particular, and I know
no,
I
it's
used
not at all, because
it was
at the end
Christianity
of the
first,
day, it has happened on every continent in every group where there is
right.
conflict between any, and we are
You know,
all
but
products of that. So in that sense, we're just
I think with
recounting
any
the
time,
factual, historic aspect of that.
I think any time that you have, a different culture combined with a culture, you're going to lose and gain things. Uh, which is, it's also another thing when you think about Native Americans here in this country, because tribes that may have held different culture ceremonies were at one point all pushed together. So, there was a combination of cultures at this point. And so
That's
you're
always been the case. That's the history of the human beings. It's always been a blending and a fusion and a diffusion and passing on and erasing and recounting and calling back, and that's what this is.
right, right. Uh, Man, all right. So the winter solstice, the mound builders, and there's so little. Wait, there's actually so many tribes of Native Americans that we know little about or lost information on. And when we talk about now this next set of people of those mounds, we have lost, of course, even more. Um, it's interesting though, because we don't. At one point, we assumed the natives were the mound builders, and it was years later till we allowed our own prejudice to accept the fact that it wasn't them. So the problem was back then we weren't willing to accept there could have been a culture before that culture.
That's
But
correct. And one aspect of that here on the East Coast, you'll hear about the maritime archaic culture or the Atlantic culture. You might also hear of the Solutrean hypothesis. And for some anthropologists within the last 50 years, that's been a controversial topic to touch on for reasons extending from, I would say, the 1940s onward. But the simplest way for us today to understand the broader picture is also by incorporating what is still physically remaining and saving it. And for me, I'll just very briefly show you, and I did show this in one other video, but this is a piece of mound builder pottery. This is a fragment which I found in a creek, so the mound was not intruded into in any sense. And that's when I find mounds, I do not intrude into them for respect purposes, because I know what I find, and especially by what's around them like this. So you can look into records and see that this particular pottery piece, which is made of clay, comes from
when
the
we talk
Adena
about
culture,
mounds,
which
guys,
built mounds here.
there literally could have been a mound in any one of y'all's backyard if you're here in America, because they were everywhere, and they were just like we said, they were plowed over, pushed over, covered up, um, and they were so old it was easy to do that. It's look at today, we still cover up Native American burial sites all over this country. If you admit that you found the bones, you just lost the rights to build there. So the better thing to do is to plow it all over, and that's what they do yet today. And it's if you figure you can get rid of that, that's a much more modern burial than a mound. So if you can get rid of that, you can get rid of the mounds easy enough, and they have. We're almost into that 30-minute mark, man, here already. Has anybody got any questions or anything they wanna ask? If because I know there's so many different ways our topics could have went here on this show, but I did want to voice the native opinion on the solstice that I had, and there wasn't no bloodletting, and we wouldn't all be standing out naked looking at the moon. Well, we might have. We like to get naked and stand outside, but that's a whole other thing. We might, but we didn't do it just because it was the longest day of the year. There wasn't a ritual praying that the sun would come back. A lot of those rituals on the longest day of the year, it was like you had to do this ceremony or the sun wouldn't come back. It would keep getting shorter and shorter. So they didn't have a belief like that anyway. Now, and some in this country may have, but none of the tribes I'm affiliated with had. Will Green Feathers mind if I call him brother? No, he would. I'll let him answer that, but I'm sure I know the answer.
Well, I consider everyone my brother and sister, and if you ever need anything, just shoot me a message. I'd give you the shirt off my back. So you're my brother, yes.
I say he's my brother in my tribe, so I already knew his answer. That's part of culture, guys, right there. That's what that is. That's a no-brainer. Yes, he is your brother, without a doubt. Just as I am, he is your brother. I don't know. They were not the builders. I didn't know. You didn't know that. The modern Indians were not the builders. John, is that what you were asking or saying? Because I would definitely, we can elaborate on that. That's I can't remember the name of the tribe. I don't know if you can or not. Don't worry if you can't. But the tribe that lived around the Serpent Mound in Ohio were credited for the Serpent Mound for years and years. They didn't credit themselves for it. In fact, they went out of their way to declare that, no, we did not build it. But there was I don't know what's the word, an arrogant thought by the archaeologists that there could not be anybody older. It had to be them. So they're lying to me. I'm right, they're wrong, type of deal. And that's why it went down that way. And as the way it was written. So
I think it was also a reflection of sensitivities in education when some of these archaeologists received their degrees. And I don't consider myself a professional. I consider myself what's called an autodidact when it comes to archaeology, which is someone who's self-taught and very proficient in that knowledge. And in that sense, going back to the mound cultures, it was waves of mound builders, and that's reflected in the size, the shape, the scale, the type of builds, and the age of the carbon dating of artifacts, and also the stone. We can't carbon date stone, but we can look at the technology used in certain tools and say that it was a wave of culture that we know identified with another place in another state that spread during that time. So just like in today's day and age, you have people who come in here from other places and across time diffuse into the country. That was the case in ancient times as well. So, and I think that the broader picture is just starting to be more widely accepted and dug into, not, pun intended there. but more people are willing to communicate it, the points that are more factual rather than, I guess you could say, opinional. And you know, there,
So,
because of the internet, we can have conversations like this.
Green Feather, we were asked. So, give everybody just a quick background there on you of where are you located, and what tribe? Do you know what clan and what tribe? And just go ahead and kind of
So,
reintroduce yourself.
mhm. I live here in Central Jersey, and I'm descended from almost every group which has come into this state from contact period, which would be the late 1500s here in New Jersey, early 1600s. So almost all the groups that came in during that period, I have in my family tree, and I trace and I do different types of research about them. In terms of the native lineage, which I have documented and also DNA tested my mother and grandmother, we are of Lenape descent because our ancestors lived here in New Jersey. Geographically, here in New Jersey, this is the Lenape territory, and exclusively on that side, going back to my grandmother and her father. And I could walk you through where in my, I'll do a separate video, maybe
Do
just on
you
my
do you
tree to
know
help
your
others
clan?
discover their own lineages and how to flourish in
Do
that
you know
sense of
your
their own
clan?
knowledge. But for me, I am of Lenape descent recently, and my sub tribe, if you will, within that is from Central Jersey. So we had different people here. The Unami were the language group. North of here, you had the Munsee or the Minisink, but also you had other ethnic groups diffused and other family ties. You had a whole very, very dense culture, which we could go over some other time and probably bring in other guest speakers who would use linguistic terms and other cultural terms, which would be more comparable to you guys to understand in the fullest sense where we come from. So
Do you know your clan though, or if not, I can help you with that. I don't know if we never talked about it. No.
so in my family, my great grandfather was from a town called Shamokin,
Uh-huh.
and if you trace his family going back, uh, my Lenape ancestors lived here in central New Jersey in what was the Unami linguistic group, going back to the area of the Navasink in Red Bank, uh, what is today Red Bank, I should say. So I would say to the audience that my most recent native ancestors were Unami, Lenape,
Okay.
because that's the language they would have spoken. But Shamokin was also a cultural diffusion town on the Susquehanna, where out of
The
survival purposes, a lot of our ancestors had to blend with other natives and
the
also
clans.
non-natives.
I'll help you with this more later on, but just so that we'll give an audience a kind of a catch up. The clans were more of your the best way to say it would be your family name. Your would okay, and like how the natives married different than the Europeans did. They had an opposite system. The man didn't the family didn't gain a daughter. Instead, the woman's family kind of gained a son. You became uh, part of their family, not the other way around. And in that is where the clan names held importance of turtle, turkey, and so on. But the clan names, because you wouldn't marry within your own clan.
That's
Uh,
correct.
okay, so again, like I said, dude, I can help you out. I know it's
Yeah, I would
people don't
appreciate
understand
that
how
if you
hard
would
it is
help
to
me find
research your own.
which clan I would be most recently technically considered under in that sense. That's one aspect of, unfortunately for me, think about it. Pennsylvania was one state which was unfortunately actually legalized it in the middle of the 18th century. It was legal to hunt Lenape people like animals in
I
Pennsylvania,
know,
just
I
FYI.
know.
So that's one reason why. I don't
There's
speak my people's language,
uh,
why
there's
people in
a
my own
very
family were not even aware that we were of native descent until we got DNA tested and I provided people with that information.
right.
It was like a Holocaust here in that sense. So people need to
Yeah,
understand there was so much
it's
burning
really
of
hard, and
culture
I
and
know
destruction of that information.
he works at in Trenton at one of the schools there in Trenton. He does his specialty is the Lenape, and he has discovered. And again, things are a little controversial until they can be completely proven. But I read his paper. I was fully convinced after reading his paper that there were much more clans than we recognize today.
Yes,
Uh, there
I
were
agree with that.
there were way more.
Yeah,
We recognize four clans, but he
I
was
think
he was
it was
describing
so complex
30,
that I think there was
40.
such a decimation of a very detailed system, which you know, was so preserved and so detailed and place specific because in the place names here, it changes by very small regions. And in terms of like a half a mile, you might have one place name which is still a tradition. Like where I grew up, I was fortunate that my town name was traditional Lenape. I grew up in a town called Manalapan. We had an adjoining little area called Machaponix, which is a Lenape word, and we had other adjoining areas like Wickatunk, Weemaconk, Toponimus, and the place names and having a sense of continuity where people always went around and for many years occupied those spaces, and those places had meaning. And I apologize that my daughter is screaming in the background. No big deal, but
It's
that,
terrible. He
yeah, you know
ties
what I'm
that baby.
saying.
He ties that baby by its toes and hangs it back there in the closet. It's terrible.
It's an old native tradition. No, I'm just we don't do that. We don't. She
You know
wants
what,
to
man?
watch.
We're gonna wrap it up here anyway. So
Yeah,
I see we got Charles Williams also came in. Thank you, Gemma. Definitely research your family tree, and
yeah,
guys,
I
if
can
you
help you
know,
with that. I'd be happy to because my my mother was adopted, so I helped her find all of that information, and I aided her in that quest. And my dad's tree, I traced his tree back 1,000 years. So I've been doing that research for 15 years myself. And
yeah, when you
anybody that's
stumble
interested in family tree research, just shoot me a message on YouTube. I can help you out.
when you do stumble into that Native American heritage in your family tree, and you'd like to know a little more about it, uh, don't just rely on the internet and the buildup of their stereotypes. Reach out to people. There's people like
Correct.
me, myself, but I can list a lot more people who are genuine Native American people, and they would be honored to help you understand more about yourself. So
Correct.
if you find out, reach out to any of us, and we would definitely talk to you about it in more detail. We have another show coming up in the future. Nick's gonna take us back out to a authentic spot out there in the land of the Lenape, and it's going to be a great show. So watch for it. Hit the reminder once I get it scheduled. Gemma, TikTok, Charles Williams. Who else did I miss here? We had a bunch of people come in. I don't know who else is still in there. If you say hello quick, I will say hello back. And guys, have a great first day of winter. Yes. Did you have something else you wanted to add, Nick? No. Did
Well, I mean, again, thank you for having me, and everyone, please join us for our coming show either this weekend or sometime next week. I'll have some snow coming in this area, and we'll have a really good time.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Hey Ninja, what's happening? Great to have you in here. Awesome. We are getting ready to go. And guys, have a great first day of winter. If you check out our next show coming up, I'll tell a story if you guys want to hear a couple stories. So it's winter time, and I know an arsenal of them. I'll give you a few titles and let you guys pick one. All right. Everybody, Yankee, can I pin his channel? Hmm. Yeah, I know. I watch you girls do that, Gemma, and I don't think I can. I don't think I can. So I'm sorry I can't, but I'll tell you what I will do. I'll pin Nick's comment because as soon as this video's over, he's going to go to the comment section and he's going to say, "Thank you, Yankee, for such an awesome show." No, I don't care what he says. And I'm going to pin that comment. And then, you can find Nick. You can still click on avatars in the comment section. Thank God. So, all right, guys, until our shows meet again, much love, everybody. Thank you, Nick, for an awesome show. Cliffside, welcome, but we are taking off. If you have any questions relevant to this show, relevant to any of our other shows, leave a comment down below. We always appreciate it. Nick or myself will answer the comments. So until our shows meet again, I hope all your adventures are awesome.